During today's photo scavenger hunt, you will be looking to take photographs that highlight the element of shape as well as the principle of contrast. Let's begin by reviewing a little bit more about the element of shape. What are shapes? Shapes are simple, flat, enclosed areas that are two-dimensional. That's very important. All shapes, no matter what they look like, are only shapes because they are two-dimensional. Shapes can be either geometric or organic. You're likely to encounter both geometric and organic shapes today, so it's important that you understand what makes them different. Let's talk first about what somebody means when they say something is two-dimensional. Two-dimensional means that the shape only has two measurements. The first being side to side, the shape's length. The second is top to bottom, the shape's height. These are the only two measurements that a shape has, meaning that shapes, all shapes, are two-dimensional. Geometric shapes are perfect, precise, and uniform. Their measurements, angles, and curves are mathematical. These are the types of shapes that have names: circles, triangles, parallelograms, octagons. Any shape that has a name and has some sort of mathematical equation with which to create the shape is considered geometric. So when you see a shape that is typically man-made, it looks perfect and precise, and you needed a ruler or some sort of special tool to make it perfect, you can bet that it's geometric. Not all shapes are geometric, however. Many shapes are organic. Organic shapes are irregular in appearance. They tend to have a curvy flow to them. Almost all the shapes that are seen in nature are considered organic. There are several examples of organic shapes here in Henry Matisse's collage. These shapes, though similar, are not precise. There was no uniform measurements involved. There was no math. These shapes were drawn freely on a piece of paper by Matisse with a pencil. That is what makes them organic. They have a natural flow and curve to them. So organic shapes are organic shapes if they were created using what you would see out in nature as a reference. Let's talk now about the principle of contrast. Contrast refers to the difference between two elements in a composition. Usually those elements are opposites, such as large or small shapes, or dark and light colors as seen here in this photograph. Contrast exists because of something called juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is the act of placing two elements, typically side by side one another, in order to highlight and emphasize their differences. As seen here in this photograph, it's very clear which penguin stands out. This penguin here, that looks nothing like the other penguins in the photograph. Their differences are highlighted because of how close they are in proximity. This is known as juxtaposition. You might be wondering how to create contrast in your photography today. I encourage you to think and look for opposites. You could look for opposites such as dark and light values, as seen here. The intense light white next to the very intense dark black creates a great contrast, making this image really unique and interesting to look at. You could also look for simple lines, be that vertical or horizontal. If you were to see vertical and horizontal lines used together in a design, well, you're going to see something with a great deal of contrast. Vertical and horizontal are opposites, and because of that, our eyes are drawn to their differences, making this eye-catching and interesting to look at. You may want to consider photographing rough and smooth textures that you see side by side one another, such as the photograph here of these sand dunes. One plane of the sand dune is extremely flat. The other plane is windswept and appears rough and bumpy. These two textures abruptly side by side one another, like they appear here in this dune, creates for a unique and interesting, eye-catching composition. This could be something that you look for out in nature today. Rough textures right next to very smooth textures. You could also look for warm and cool colors that are side by side one another. Cool colors such as blue and purple tend to make warm colors such as orange, red, and yellow pop. This bright orange appears more orange because it's surrounded by nothing but blue. As you're walking today, perhaps you see one bright flower in a sea of much cooler flowers. Well, that would make a great photograph to highlight contrast. A final example would be to look for geometric and organic shapes that appear side by side one another. While this doesn't occur often out in nature, you could easily take a geometric shape from your home and place it out in nature alongside organic shapes to create a composition that looks similar to this painting here. This painting is by a contemporary artist named Alyssa Dodge. She paints very realistic landscapes and superimposes geometric mountainscapes built into them. I think that juxtaposition, that contrast is quite startling and quite stark. It's actually quite interesting to look at. You could look for something similar occurring out in nature near or around your house. As you photograph today, make sure you're taking two photographs. One photograph that best highlights shape, either organic or geometric, and then take a second photograph that highlights contrast, trying to find two very different elements that are near one another and photographing them. This could be a staged photo, or it could be a photo that you find naturally occurring out in the world around you. Either is fine. Please watch the next video to make sure that you understand how to upload your photos so you can receive full credit.